Joining me now is Fox News military analyst General Jack Keane. General, Fox News is reporting that U.S. officials say up to 20 transfers are still to come before Inauguration Day. And that's on top of what we know, that 30% of released detainees are suspected of returning to the battlefield. What are the security implications of what is happening before Trump takes office?
Well, this has always been a sad indictment of the Obama administration, because when we got below 200, that is when this really got dangerous. And it's also what led to the termination of Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, because he would not rubber stamp the request from the White House with all this political pressure to release prisoners. They have a process there. If they don't go through this committee because they're too dangerous, what the White House does is keep sending them back to new committee members over the course of the following weeks and months until they eventually get an okay from the Defense Department. That's what Hagel objected to, and also why he is no longer Secretary of Defense. So yes, of course, this is a security issue for the United States. 30% do go back and repeat their activities, usually at a much larger leadership role because they're iconic figures, having been in our prison. But secondly, most people believe the number is considerably higher than the 30%. We just cannot confirm it.
We know directly from government officials and from testimony that Americans have been killed by Gitmo detainees who were released and re-radicalized, period. And it begs the question again, why the fixation by the Obama administration on getting the detainees out of Gitmo, other than trying to make good on a promise from 8 years ago?
Well, I think it's largely that he wants to make good on that promise, regardless of the facts on the ground. And number two, that there was so much political objections to his making good on that promise by the Congress of the United States, that he is just, as he has done in other areas of his responsibility, he uses executive orders, he doesn't care what the Congress thinks, and he's trying to empty the prison but not closing the prison because Congress will not let him do that. That's essentially where he is. It's a false narrative to say that the reason we're doing this is because this enhances their recruiting efforts. That is ISIS and Al-Qaeda. My organization, ISW, tracks what they say every single day, and there has not been any utterance on that issue for over 10 years in dealing with radical Islamists who are somehow motivated to join the movement because of Guantanamo Bay. That was an issue years and years ago, has never been an issue for many years.
Well, and the Democrats tried to use cost as an argument as well, the cost of operating Gitmo and the expense. But one of the things that got in the way of closing it and potentially moving those detainees to U.S. soil, other than it'd have to get past Congress, is the cost of doing it, because it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, most of the objection is really in the local congressional districts. They do not want those detainees in their district. That's largely the objection. They see it as a security issue, and they're very content with Guantanamo Bay off the shores of the United States. Yes, the cost, of course, you know, when you get down below 200, the cost goes astronomical, and that's where we are now, in people pleading the fact that it's not cost beneficial. Listen, security of American people should not have a cost.
So what do we do with the President-elect Trump coming into office with Gitmo? Because he's left in a very tough spot by the outgoing administration.
He will not release anybody, I don't think, at all for the foreseeable future. If anything, we have to do something about ISIS in Syria. The Obama administration has no plans. And that may, in fact, lead to some kind of larger ground operation than we're currently conducting. Certainly, President-elect Trump will be given a number of options, if he hasn't already, and he'll select one of those. That may lead to more detainees, and we may find ourselves with Guantanamo Bay taking on new detainees as opposed to releasing them.
That's a good point, General. And moving on to news from overseas, a car bomb tore through a Baghdad market this morning, killing at least 9, 15 others injured. ISIS has not claimed responsibility for that attack, but this is a tactic that the Islamic State has used. Is there any way to prevent these attacks on soft targets like a market, or even what you saw in Turkey over the New Year?
Not in the foreseeable future. What's taking place in Baghdad is ISIS terrorist attacks. They can relatively do those at will. They cannot sustain it to the degree that is happening every week and every month as al-Qaeda did in Baghdad in 2006, which resulted in President Bush's surge to put them down. But the reality is, yes, they can occur episodically, which they will. The real story in Iraq is the fact that the offensive in Mosul has been revitalized. Lieutenant General Steve Townsend put his mind on the plan, got into the details of it with the Iraqis, made some improvements in command and control, some other improvements we can't talk about, but nonetheless, they are up and moving again. That is good news. So eventually Mosul will be taken. Obviously, it's turning out to be quite a struggle. We said it would be if ISIS would stay there and fight, which they have decided to do, evidently.
General, it's so great to see you this morning, but always a pleasure, always insightful. General Jack Keane, Fox News military analyst. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, good talking to you, Dagan.